You know, right. The podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, media, and entertainment. Joe, our guest today, as Joe Calabrese joins me, Nick Durst. Joe, our guest today, you're very excited about because for a long time he was a beat reporter for your favorite football team, but he's overall he's a very good guy, and we're going to learn some more about him. We're going to peel back the layers. There's more to him than just gang green, right, Joe?
Absolutely. And very happy to have a huge Jets fan on with us. But he does some NFL reporting. He works for SNY. And we're fortunate to have had a lot of his friends and colleagues on in the past with us. So adding another member to the SNY family. Love that. Connor Hughes. Connor, welcome to the show. How you doing today? Love the setup in the back.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. It's a shout out to my wife. She's kind of the one who tackled that whole thing for me. But thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, we are recording this on a Friday. This doesn't come out on a Friday. And Joe, you know what they say about Friday? Flannel Fridays. You got to rock the flannel. So Connor's got the dress code. Joe, usually you wear the flannel. So
I usually wear the flannel. I'll have a flannel out later, but for now, just the podcast shirt. But we love the flannel. Love the flannel look.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, man. I try to. Today was actually a good one because it was a little chilly out. So before I showed up at practice, I texted Janae, who I do a bunch of hits with down at the Jets facility, and I was like, "Any chance? Are you wearing a coat? Because I think we're gonna have to do our hit outside." She's like, "Absolutely, I am." I was like, "Good. I'm wearing one too, which means I can dress kind of more casually, not have to worry about the blazer or anything like that." So I am. I'm pretty comfortable right now. It's officially flannel season. I think you know what I mean. It's just. The problem is we go so quickly from flannel season to like quarter zip and bundle up that it's a little depressing.
Yeah, fall doesn't really exist that much. It's like
no,
right into the cold. So the snow will be here before we know it, unfortunately. And that stinks. But you grew up in the area, so you're used to that. So
yeah.
What was it like growing up, and what sports were you interested in, or were you always just like football guy? And how did you ultimately decide that you wanted to pursue a career in sports journalism?
Yeah. So I grew up in South Jersey, outside Philadelphia. Testing anybody who really knows South Jersey geographics and all that stuff. I grew up in Tabernacle, New Jersey, which is way down there, down in the farmland of South Jersey. But no, man, for me, sports was everything, and specifically football was kind of like my biggest passion. I mean, I grew up absolutely worshiping the game, loving the game, and everything about it. Like it was honestly like one of my best friends, and was one of the best men at my wedding. He and his family actually got my mom, who was kind of like the source of my football love growing up. It wasn't my dad; it was my mom. He got my mom for Christmas one year a sign that still to this day hangs over her fridge, which says, "We interrupt this family for football season," because it really was like Sunday was a holiday for us growing up. Like it was. I remember I would wake up at 11 o'clock, and from 11 to 12 o'clock, we watched the ESPN pregame show. From 12 to 1 o'clock, it was the Fox pregame show. Then it was the 1 o'clock game, the 4 o'clock game, NFL primetime, and as much of the Sunday night game that I was allowed to watch. And that's what I grew up doing, man. And it got to the point where, like, towards the end of my middle school years and in high school, all of my friends would come over and we would just have giant football Sunday parties. It was just a freaking blast. Like everything about it was just freaking awesome. And I loved absolutely every second of it. And that's kind of where like my love for it began. And obviously when you're a kid, like your dream is to play in the NFL. That's what I wanted to do. But the one thing that I actually realized pretty early on was that if I was not the fastest or strongest or best player on my Seneca youth football team, the odds of me making the NFL were probably pretty slim. So my goal was kind of to try to find a way to get to the NFL that maybe didn't involve being on the field. And for so long, like that to me was I wanted to be a play-by-play broadcaster. Like that was my goal. Like I turn off the audio of my Madden video games and I do play-by-play broadcasting. And that was my passion. And that's what I wanted to do. And the whole writing aspect of it and the reporting and the beat writing thing, it almost kind of like fell into my lap. Like so I went to Burlington County College after I graduated Seneca High, and I had a history professor, and his name was Robert Koval, and it was just a prerequisite, like a history class that you had to take in order to get your degree. And I remember we went around based on our major, and he put us into like study groups for the class based on our major. So I wanted to be a play-by-play guy, so I was a communications major. So I was lumped in and grouped in with all the other comm guys. And after the communication thing went through, he broke us all up, and he was like, okay, like the people who were psychology majors, right? Like, what do you want to do within psychology? People that are this, what do you want to do within that? People who are this, like all that fun stuff. Like, what do you want to do specifically in the field? And so he got to me, and I said, I want to be a play-by-play broadcaster. That's what I want to do. And he looked at me and he goes, Connor, you better learn how to write. And I remember he made that comment to me, and I was like, what do you mean? Like that? You must have not heard me. I want to be a play-by-play guy. I don't want to be a writer. And I went up and I spoke to him after class and said exactly that. And he said, Connor, I'll give you 10 points extra credit if you can go find me one play-by-play guy that doesn't have some background in writing. And I took that challenge upon myself. I could not find anyone. So the next day I went into the guidance counselor's office and signed up for a journalistic writing class. And from that class and meeting after with the professor over and over and over again, just to figure out how to write and get myself better with writing, I just fell in love with the field. And that's where my career took me from my freshman or sophomore year at Burlington County College all the way through Monmouth to now where I am today.
I got a good question for you. We haven't had too many people on from South Jersey, so I really like asking this. There's 90 minutes between New York and Philadelphia, right? What is the official designated Jersey cutoff point before it's acceptable to start liking the Philly teams as opposed to the New York teams? Is there there's
a central Jersey. There is a central Jersey. Like I don't like get there. And I live in it right now because my wife is a nurse at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And then I obviously cover the Jets and Giants. So we're in Princeton, which is like the middle point. This is Central Jersey. And I think like Central Jersey is where you have the mix. So like the perfect example is, I mean, I cut the cord recently, but when I still had cable, I used to get SNY, MSG, but also NBC Sports Philadelphia. So I got all the Philly channels and I got all the New York channels. And this is like the melting pot of where you have everything. And then I would say you go like 10 or 15 minutes north of me and you get into Somerset County. And that's when you're officially into like the southern end of northern New Jersey, but that gets into North Jersey. And then you go like 10 minutes south of me, it's like Allentown. And that's when you're still in South Jersey. So there is a Central Jersey, and that's where I live. And that's kind of where the mix is. And then the further north you go, the mix goes, you know, more blue-green, more blue-green, more blue-green until it's all blue-green for Jets green, not Eagles green.
Wow, interesting breakdown there for sure. So I'm curious here about the background here on you and your wife, and where is she from? And then where did you end up having your wedding as far as where it fell on the grid?
Yeah, no, you're right. So my wife's from Marlton. So I grew up in Tabernacle. She grew up in Marlton, and they're about like 20, 30 minutes from each other. We actually met at my very first job. So when I was 17 and she was 16, we were both ice cream scoopers at Brewster's Ice Cream, Nathan's Hot Dogs. And there was a store that opened up briefly before it closed down in the Medford Marlton area. And we both got our first jobs there. We met there. It took me a while to woo her and get her to go on a date with me in high school. But when she eventually did, I mean, we've literally been together ever since. You know, we never broke up. She went to my prom. I went to her prom, dated throughout college. She went to TTNJ. I went to Monmouth, but, you know, dated throughout our different colleges, and then got married last year. And we actually got married at the Hamilton Manor in Central Jersey. We thought it was a good location for all of our friends that are from the North, all of our friends that are from the South. It was like for us to get there. I was fighting, like for anyone that knows me, they obviously know I love golf. And I was fighting pretty hard to have it at the Woodcrest Country Club, which I loved. I had Bree for a little bit. Like she was kind of like on board with it. We saw the ballroom of the Hamilton Manor. We saw the ballroom of Woodcrest. And that's when I completely lost her because there was no comparing them. And I realized, obviously, it's her day. It's not mine. And I still got the chance to play golf in the morning. So I was happy.
Yeah, I say this all the time. I went to Nick's wedding a couple years ago. He got married in 2019. He's married. He's got a wife. I'm single, right? So the dichotomy between us is great. But Nick, tell Connor where you got married and how everything was set up with you.
Well, I got married in New Jersey as well. We're in Staten Island, so it's pretty common. Went to the Venetian at the Palazzo.
Oh.
I think there's been some famous weddings there. Snooki got married there. One of the McCourty brothers got married there. And there was pictures of Darrell Revis there. Yeah, so I went there. And but to me, I think the wedding, like it's people are always gonna remember the food and the music. So that's what it comes down to. And I think everybody had a good time at my wedding because food was my top priority. And I think we got some good food.
That was us. The two biggest things is it's you feed them well and you have a good band and or DJ. and obviously like the guest list as well. As long as you have those two things, those three things, you're set. I know my sister's getting married now, and I tell her the same thing. Is it's like say like people say like, and we're fortunate that it's like, oh, it's Connor and Bree weddings. Do what Connor and Bree did. Do what Connor and Bree did. And I'm like, Taylor, I was like, as long as you have good music and good food and good company, it does not matter. You can get married outside in a shed. You can get married in the nicest place in the world. It doesn't matter. Just have those three things and you're going to be set. And the good thing is she's already got 50% of the family, because obviously it's my side, and her husband, George, or fiance, George, his family's great as well. So I know it's going to be just as good.
Absolutely. We wish you and your wife and your sister and fiance the best of luck moving forward.
Thank you.
We'll get back on track here. You had a good point before about media and trying to be a play-by-play broadcaster and needing to write and stuff. And I think anybody who's looking to study communications or looking to work in media today, you have to be somebody who wears many hats, right? So when you're in college, you got your associate's degree from Rowan College and your bachelor's degree from Monmouth, as you mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. So what did you do on campus, or what did you do in terms of internships? What did you do locally here? And how hard and difficult was it to get that first job after college?
Yeah, so I was kind of funky and a little bit different. I did most of like my internships and working within the school when you said Rowan College. I was like, no, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Now it is Rowan College. So when I was there, it was Burlington County College. Now it's Rowan College. No one would even know what Burlington County is anymore. But when I was at BCC, now RCBC, I was very involved in their radio station. So they had Z88.9, where I worked with Brett Holcomb, Jason Varga. Those were two guys, and Brian Gaddy were the three that kind of oversaw. Brett oversaw the entire station. Jay also kind of helped oversee the station. And then Brian was their sports director. I was involved heavily within their we didn't have a college football team. So what we would do is we did radio play-by-play broadcasts at the local high school games. I was very involved in that. I did sideline reporting for that. I did color commentary, and I was the backup play-by-play guy. When I had that class with Professor Koval, and he was like, hey, you need to learn to write, I figured I was already at these games covering them for the radio station. So I would just take the quotes that I would get from talking to players after the game and stuff like that, record them now, and then I would go home and I would write a story and I would publish it on Z889's website, like Z89sports.com. Out of pure kind of just like coincidence, my mom, one of my mom's best friends is Debbie Doolittle, and her son is Sean Doolittle, who was a pitcher for a while. I think he still is he was with the Athletics, won a championship with the Washington Nationals. I think he went to the Reds briefly, then came back to the Nationals again. I think he's made like 2 All-Star games. I knew him growing up, and he was actually one of the guys, like I used to get baseball lessons from him when I was a kid. So when I was at Z889 was when Sean was going up through his minor league process. He was actually a guy that was drafted as a first baseman, dealt with a ton of injuries. And then because of the ton of injuries that he had, he ended up converting to pitcher, which is what he did in high school and college. Found out he was throwing like 24 or 94 miles an hour, 95 miles per hour, which was faster than he threw in college. And they were like, you know what, let's make a conversion from first base to a relief pitcher. And I think within the span of like 3 months, he was called up for the first time. So he had this unbelievable story. So I remember saying like, you know what, I've always written game stories and things like that. In journalistic writing, I'm learning about featured stories, which is like, writing a human interest something. I was like, this seems like a pretty cool story. I'm going to interview him for the radio station. Then I'm going to take that interview and I'm going to turn it into a feature. And I remember I did the quotes. I got the story. I talked to Sean. We were actually the first interview that he gave after being called up to the majors. And I went through and I wrote this story and I turned it into class and turned it into my professor, got a pretty good grade on it. And I remember he suggested I send it to someone who had been retired. He had like covered the Flyers or something like that. He was a retired sports writer. He goes, send it to him. He goes, I'd like this guy to read it. And I was like, okay, sure. I think it was Ray Perillo was the guy who read it for me. And I remember he emailed me back and he goes, Connor, I'm going to be honest with you. This shouldn't be turned into a high school or this shouldn't be turned into a college class. This should be published. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. So the local paper here in South Jersey, where I grew up, was the Burlington County Times. So I reached out to their sports director, their sports editor, Wayne Richardson, sent him my copy or my story, handed it to him, was like, hey, what do you think, man? And I'd love to do an internship because I'm doing an internship now with the radio station. Also at the time I was broadcasting for like the Camden River Sharks, like doing stuff like that. I was like, I'm trying to get into writing more. I'd love to do an internship with the BCT. And he goes, I'll do you one better, Connor. I'll make you a freelance writer. So instead of getting college credit or something like that, we'll give you, $50 a game story, 75 a feature, like nothing big, but beer money, like fun money on the side. So I was like, dude, like this is great now. I'm a professional writer now. Like this is kind of cool. And from that point, that was my sophomore year at Burlington County College, RCBC, Rowan College now. My career kind of took weird because at that point then, I sort of stopped doing the college radio station, college paper, because I actually started working professionally. So I did Burlington County College, or I did the Burlington County Times until I graduated Burlington County College. When I went to Monmouth, I realized I couldn't keep writing for the BC or BCT. So they actually put me in contact with the Star Ledger in their high school department. And I started as a part-timer there covering the Shore Conference and then eventually Morris County football there in down by the Shore, which is right near Monmouth County, which is where I went to school, Monmouth University. And from there, it was just like one step after another of trying to climb the ladder. So the cool thing about covering high school sports back then for the Ledger was that you had the summer off, so you didn't have to work in the summer. So I was like, okay, well, I banked all this money that I just made as a part-time writer. I was like, my goal obviously is not to cover high school sports for the rest of my life. I want to be a professional. I want to cover the NFL. Like, that's my goal. I was like, when a job opens in my mind, when I'm, in my 20s, I was like, in my mind, I was like, okay, if a job opens up right now at the New York Times, the New York Daily News, the New York Post, NJ.com, the Star Ledger, the Athletic wasn't even around. Like, if a job opened up at one of these places, I remember sitting there being like, I would have to go to my boss or the editor there and convince him that I can cover the NFL, and have to be like, look, I've covered high school sports. I'm telling you, I can do it. I can cover the NFL. I can cover the NFL. I was like, instead of convincing somebody that I can, wouldn't it be really cool and helpful if I could take content and be able to show them and say, look, I did cover the NFL. I do have professional clips. Look at this. Like this, I don't have to convince you. I can show you that I've done it. And then if a job was open, I would have a better opportunity to go and grab it. And so what I did was I was like, I understand I'm not going to get a job covering the Giants right now at the Daily News or ESPN or anything like that, but there's all of these like fan websites out there and like, random websites online that cover the team. I'm just going to send countless emails until I get a few that will allow me to write and submit clips to them during the high school sports off season. And my goal was to first email the Giants because they were closest to Monmouth. Then I was going to go to the Eagles because they were second closest to Monmouth. And then I was going to go to the Jets because they were a little bit further away from Giants. And what I got fortunate about was SB Nation and Big Blue Interactive, two of the first 5 that I emailed, got back to me. And there were several others that did, but the one thing that separated SB Nation and BBI, Big Blue View for SB Nation, was that they were going to give me a credential to go out there and actually like be on location. So I was on location for the draft, OTAs, minicamp, all of training camp. So it wasn't just writing from afar. I would, one, be able to actually like cut my teeth around the best in the world of the New York media, but also go in there and compete with them a little bit and hopefully get some people that would see how hard I grinded, see how talented I could be, and have them in my corner where when a job opened up, they could write some kind of a recommendation. So I started writing for Big Blue Interactive and SB Nation for free. Did that throughout the summer of 2014, Odell Beckham's rookie year. September, October of that year, one of the women who also covers the Giants, Patty Traina, she came up to me and said, "Hey, I know you're doing this for free. I heard of an opportunity. It's the Journal Inquirer in Connecticut. They're doing freelance stories. It's $150 a week. It's just the Jets, not the Giants." So I was like, okay, let's do that. Started covering, I'm still in college, started covering I was doing the Giants like Wednesday, Friday, the Jets on Thursday. I would leave class and drive right up as fast as I could to get to practice. And then did that for probably 2 or 3 more months. And then I found out about.com was starting, and they had an opening for a website covering the Jets. And it was like, okay, well, I'll just stop the Giants entirely not getting paid and just go Journal Inquirer and about.com. And then from 2014, 15, and 16, it was honestly, dude, it was all about climbing the ladder, finding out about opportunities, taking them, sending emails, getting them. So I went from the Journal Inquirer and about.com to scout.com for a minute, to the USA Today Sports Media Group, to Bleacher Report. I was writing for a bit. And then in 2016, the Star Ledger had a Jets writer opening. They had somebody leave. I had just graduated Monmouth. Out of pure luck, somebody left. And I had Jordan Ronan, who used to cover the Giants, who was one of those reporters that I said I met in the field and saw me grind and saw me work and helped me a lot. Made a call to his boss, or one of his old bosses there at NJ.com, Kevin Manahan, and was like, "I think this is the kid you should hire." Went out to dinner with Manahan, and I had the job a couple days later. So it was grinding. It was busting your ass. It was a lot of like nights where I went to sleep saying like, is an opportunity ever going to come? But then when the opportunity did, I was able to capitalize on it.
Absolutely, and moving around, you grew very quickly. I mean,
You
from
did.
Bow to
Yeah.
USA Today, NJ Advanced Media, and then ultimately, you mentioned it before, you get the job as a staff writer with the Athletic, who, when you're in college, didn't even exist. When you start
Yeah.
your career,
Yeah.
that didn't even exist. So for you, I mean, you grew up in the '90s like us, so clearly we all grew up. There were newspapers,
Mhm.
and you started out working with newspapers as well. And obviously, there's some digital there. But for you, because we've had some other people who made the jump to the Athletic at the time, any hesitation in the fact that you're going straight into digital? I'm going to guess maybe you did, you probably didn't. And also, how did that opportunity come about for you?
100%. I mean, I was nervous as hell. Like, absolutely. Because I remember, like, the first time I heard about the Athletic was actually when I was still writing, because I got my ledger job when I was 23. So again, I'm so fortunate that I was 23 years old and a full-time beat writer at the biggest paper in New Jersey covering an NFL team, right? I mean, there's people who are 23, 24, 25, all the way up till 30 that are still covering high school sports and grinding their ass to get the opportunity that I did. And I got it at 23. And it was like surprising, but a lot of hard work did go into that. You know what I mean? I like to think that it wasn't just a gift. You earn it. But for me, honestly, I thought like I was going to be at the Ledger for a very long time, because I was like, I literally, like you mentioned the paper, like I love, you can see it on the corner of my wall. Like,
Yeah.
it's my first 2 front page stories that I ever had. Like, so my first front page story for the Star Ledger when I covered high school sports, my first front page story for the Star Ledger when I covered the New York Jets. And it's like, so that's the paper I grew up reading as a kid. Like, I read NJ.com and the Star Ledger every single day. And like, to have my name on that paper was literally the coolest thing in the entire world. And so I remember I got a DM from somebody who was in charge of talent acquisition at the Athletic when it was just starting, and it was just like, "Hey, Connor, I was wondering if you didn't happen to have any time to talk on the phone." At this point, only been at the Ledger for like 2 years. Like, I wasn't at the Star Ledger for very long. It was 2 years. And I planned very much to work there for 10 years and then maybe try to make a jump to NFL Network or SNY or ESPN, or go more TV. I didn't know where my career would go, or stay writing forever. I had no freaking clue. And so I was like, all right, I'll talk to you. You always answer the phone, right? It's the old Joe Douglas line. Like, you always answer the phone when someone calls. So got on the phone with Paul, who was one of the guys that was looking at talent acquisition, and he pitched me what the Athletic was, and what the Athletic was trying to do. And he basically sold me on a place that I didn't think existed anymore. Because when I was at the Ledger, it was all about page views, page views, page views, page views, page views. And what Paul was saying was that there is an outlet that we are creating, that we believe that if we create quality content and we give it to people, people will pay for that quality content. And it doesn't matter what clicks you have, we're going to give them premier content. And it's the story that matters. Make the extra call, write the good story. And I was like, shit, man, that sounds really awesome. And I just bought into the vision. Now, being completely honest with you, like, I would not have made the jump from the Star Ledger to here if it was like an even playing field contractually. So like, they also made a very compelling offer to make me leave the Star Ledger, which
Yeah.
was like, I remember talking to Bree and being like, yeah, this is a 2-year deal and it's a lot more money than I'm ever going to see at the Star Ledger. So I think we should probably make this jump. But I definitely believed in their vision, and I believed in everything that they were saying. And then when they committed to me with the financial figure that they committed to me with, that's when I was like, okay, these guys aren't dicking around. Like we are now, like, they are serious about what they're trying to do. They are legitimate with what they're trying to do. And I can honestly say that from when I joined them in 2018 through the ensuing 5 years that I worked there, they were undeniably the best 5 years of my professional career. And I love every second of what I'm doing right now at SNY, but I've been there since August. So, they still are in the infancy stages. Love this too. But like I'm saying, like, from a longevity standpoint of every place I've been, excluding my current employer, the Athletic was the best professional tenure of my life. I wrote stories that I never thought I'd have the chance to write again, met people. It allowed me to develop and become more sourced within the NFL than ever before, because suddenly I wasn't just chasing news stories and the sexy headline and trying to get players to say, damning things that I knew would click well. I could actually build and formulate relationships with sources. And it was, like I said, it was the best 5 years of my career. It was so much more than I ever even expected it to be. And don't get me wrong, like, I still miss seeing my name in print, like, more than anything. Like, I thought that was, anytime my name was in the paper, I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, which is why literally I have 2 of them up on my wall. If I wasn't in an apartment and had more space, I have my first one from the BCT that has to go up, and my first one from a paper I wrote for when I was a kid that have to be framed and put up as well next to these. But it is just like, I miss that aspect of it, but making the jump to the Athletic was so huge for my career, and did so much for my career. It was a great decision. In hindsight, if I knew now what I knew then, I would have taken less to go to the Athletic.
Wow. Well, it all went down in the DMs. So obviously social media playing a factor. And in all of your positions, your jobs, how did you always balance the line between, I got breaking news here, do I tweet it out or do I write an article? And where do I go? What are your different editors? What was their mindsets on that?
NJ.com used to be, it always had to have a link. Then that kind of changed because you realized you couldn't wait and sit on it. So it all depends on what it is. Honestly, I think like when my stance on breaking news is actually advice I got from Mark Stapleton when I was a kid coming up, when I was writing for BBI and started hearing stuff from people and started talking to agents and hearing rumors. I remember talking to Art, and he told me the one thing that he always asks himself whenever he has information is, before he puts it on Twitter, is saying this worth the person never talking to me again? And is saying this potentially going to have that person never talk to me again? He's like, I will always ask myself that before I hit enter. And I think that's like the best advice in the way that I just handle news. You know what I mean? Like you get stuff all the time. Like that's the thing in this field, is like, I have 100 things that I could tweet right now that would be pretty damning, but and pretty juicy, and I'm certain would get a ton of interaction on Twitter. But it's like, what's the point in doing that? Because the moment I do that, this person's not going to talk to me again. This person's not going to talk to me. This person's not going to talk to me again. A lot of times, some of the best information you have is information you can trade to other people to, and then get more information back. And you just, play it that way. You always have to play the long-term game, even though sometimes the short-term gratification might be something you're like, oh my God, this is so great, I want to do this. You kind of got to keep the eyes focused on long-term. So that's kind of how I've always approached breaking news. And I started sourcing differently when I went to the Athletic, and have continued here with SNY. I think getting that information and understanding what to use and what not to use is continues to become clearer and clearer and clearer, and you develop and grow and you learn how to play the game.
So as you mentioned, you're with SNY now. So I want to know, how did that come about for you? It's not like you see a job posting to be on TV, you apply. Yeah. And I want to know how much did your experience going on with Steve Overmyer, our buddy, former guest on CBS, how much did that help you build your confidence on air? And was there any sort of tape that you sent over in their audition process, and just how did it work out for you?
That's they pursued me, like we talked over the course of a little bit. They were familiar with me because I was doing stuff for SNY for a while. Like we were doing I used to do contributing work for them. Like they'd bring me on GSN, they would have me do hits from Jets camp and stuff like that. So I think when they were going to have an opening at the position that they had, they reached out to me and we talked, and it was, is this something you're interested in? Is this something we're interested in? Then you have to get financials in order, contract in order, like all the fun back end stuff that obviously can be pretty boring. But I think I was fortunate with SNY in that they were already very familiar with me. Like, I mean, they were actually Steve Overmyer mentioned, he was the first person to ever put me on TV in New York. Like I did a hit when I was at, I want to say, the USA Today Sports Media Group with Steve for the first time for WLNY. And he used to do like a little sports show there, and he brought me on as a guest. And then I used to go on and do CBS with him, and eventually Jets Late Night I co-hosted with him for the last 2 years. And then all the while I was still contributing to SNY and do it. Like I did some documentaries for them on the Jets, early in my career. I would do, like I said, stand-ups for them, do hits with Janae, whatever they needed me, I would always do it. Because, like I said, the thing with me is, as I told you guys, I always wanted to be a play-by-play guy. My career went writing, but then television and that broadcasting aspect came all the way back to it. So it was like I went writing, or wanting to do broadcasting, started full-time writing. Then the TV came back, and then I found this perfect little marriage of, I was doing television on the side for CBS and SNY and NBC with Bruce Beck, and then I was doing writing as well with obviously, like, the Ledger, and then all the places, the Athletic, that I was eventually there. And it was like this perfect harmony of, holy crap, I'm doing everything, and I'm never bored, because I had a podcast with the Athletic, and then I was doing TV on the side, and I was writing columns, features, and everything. The thing that made me take the jump to SNY was that they presented an opportunity to kind of have me do more television, which is what, like broadcasting was my first love. Then I fell in love with writing. Television kind of was like the television as an analyst was the one that came around where I was like, man, this is really freaking cool. Like, this is just so much fun to me. And the opportunity to do more of that, along with still keeping my hand in writing to doing columns and features and things like that, it was a dream opportunity and a dream job for me. And I remember when I gave the Athletic my 2 weeks and talked to, or not 2 weeks, to my contract ran out. But when the Athletic offered me a contract extension to return. And when I told them, guys, unfortunately, I'm leaving for SNY, I told them, I was like, there is nothing that the Athletic did for why I left. There's nothing that you guys could do to keep me. There's nothing that I'm not leaving angrily or anything like that. I absolutely loved my last 5 years. This with SNY is just a dream opportunity for me. It's a chance to be on TV full-time in New York, both as a personality, both as an insider, while still having my hand in writing and broadcasting. I mean, if SNY didn't come around, I would have re-signed on the 2-year deal that the Athletic offered me. It was just SNY came through with a dream opportunity, and I took it and ran with it.
And that's show business. So for you here with SNY, any adjustment as far as going from being so heavily Jets to Giants? How do you build up those sources again here? And also the differences for you preparing for a report versus when you're sitting where you are right now at your home office, when you're at one of the facilities talking with somebody with the Janae or somebody for the Giants, and versus when you're going in the studio. And this is a loaded question, but also how do you figure out your outfits between all those different ones? And are you going into the studio in your suit? Do you leave your suits there? Just very, very interested in all that.
I love it. So I have a stylist. Her name is my wife. She is the one who approves literally everything that I wear. So it's actually funny. So like I kind of had to figure all that out. Like, you need to develop a style, because when I wasn't on TV full time, like I would go to practice in a tee or like a flannel and like not have to worry really what I look like. So for me, like practices, I'll usually go with a blazer and a t-shirt, or because it's a little bit more informal. So I'm always like blazer and a tee with my jeans, and I'll wear boots, or I've got several different kinds of boots that I'll wear. My buddy Nick English helps me out with that. He runs Stridewise, which is a website for men's fashion and stuff. So he's another one I always go to for help and stuff. But usually it's a blazer and tee when I'm there. I always make sure everything matches by running it through my wife. For game days, I'll still rock the jeans, but it's just a blazer or a suit top with the dress shirt and then a tie. Again, wife has to approve everything that I wear. And then in studio is always the suit and tie, which again, always approved by the wife, because I don't even try to pretend to what matches and what doesn't match. So she runs point on all of that stuff for me, and I would be completely lost without her. But for me, like, I don't actually wear, like, when I go to Jets practice, I'll wear like my blazer and the tee, or my blazer and the dress shirt with no tie. Like, I'll wear that there. When I go into the city, generally I just bring my suit. Like, I don't wear it on the path or anything like that. Like, I try to carry it with me and go in there. And then they have like a dressing room and green room and all that stuff, and I'll just get changed on in there. Yeah. And then what was the first part of that question outside of the fashion?
Yeah, the different prep work. No, different types.
Got you. So for Jets, because I've been covering the Jets since 2014. So for them, there's very little that you can ask me about the Jets that doesn't just like, okay, I know. Like, you can ask me anything about that team, and I'll be able to just pull on it and talk about it for the next 15 minutes about whatever you want to ask me about the Jets. With the Giants, but again, that information's come from being with their ever since 2014. So 8-9 years of covering this team, you just know that information that you can just put out to the world. Like, you can put out there and send out there, and then they have it and you can use it. With the Giants, I don't necessarily have all that background, so just started covering them again. So for me, it's a lot of like reaching out to people I know, touching base even with my Jets sources on topics with the Giants, cultivating those relationships that I'm starting to develop with Giants sources to ask them about this. Other reporters who cover the team that I'm really tight with, Dan Duggan, one of my best friends, Jordan, obviously, who I mentioned before, Art. I'll reach out to them with questions to make sure that like my opinion or my stance on a certain topic isn't so off or wrong just from guys who are around the team 24/7. So I'll almost have them vet it. And then I'm able to just kind of know how to broadcast it in different ways. Like, it's everything's so conversational now. Like, the days of like, buttoned up reporter man, like just talking in a monotone voice or using your fluctuations all funkily, that's over. That's done. You know what I mean? Like, everyone wants a conversation like you and I are speaking right now. That's what they want over air, and that's what they want to hear on camera and see on camera. So for me, that's kind of what I try to take, whether I'm doing a hit with Janae, whether I'm doing a hit with Michelle, whether I'm doing a hit with Maria, whether I'm doing a hit with anybody, or just myself, a stand-up by myself. I just want it to feel like you and I are sitting at a bar shooting the shit, having a few beers, and we're talking about whatever that topic is that I'm talking about there. And I think when I'm with somebody else, that's very easy to do. When I'm by myself and it's a stand-up IA, that's what I'm still like working every day to get better at. Like I talked to my boss yesterday. Matt Dunn is my direct boss, and I remember I sent him 2 of my clips that I did this week from Jets camp because I was like, I felt like I had taken another step towards like really getting that conversational tone down. And I was like, man, am I right with this? Like, do you think this is one of my better ones? And he was like, yeah. So it's like you're constantly trying to get better, constantly trying to grind. And for me, like, I'm such a perfectionist, and in my opinion, like, if you would have told me when I was a kid, like 10 years old, that this would be my job when I'm 30, like I would be like, holy shit, where do I sign up? That is the coolest thing in the world. Future Connor's the coolest person like ever. Like, I can't believe this is how I pay my bills, right? So if you would have told my 10-year-old self that, I know that there are so many people in college all over the country that would love to do what I do. And as much as I support the youth, I'm not willing to give up my job yet, right? And like, I know that those people are coming for my job. You know what I mean? So for me, like, I want to hold on to this job as long as I can possibly hold on to this job. And the way that you do that is you never give somebody an opportunity to replace you. And you don't give somebody the opportunity to replace you by never giving them a reason to replace you. So I am constantly trying to get better. I mean, I watch every single one of my videos over and over and over again to pinpoint like even word choice that I use, just to like, it's like scouting. You know what I mean? Like, I scout myself. That I'll watch guys like Mike Garafolo or Tom Pelissero or Rappaport or Schefter or Graziano. I'll watch those guys on air, and I'll take bits of their game and try to put it into my own. I mean, it's that kind of stuff that I'll do, just to try to constantly get better and constantly get better. I know, like, sometimes my wife will be like, you know, you're like, you're good at this. Like, you can calm down, because I'll be like, no, I got to do this, but I got to do this. But I'll do, like, when I'm recording by myself, I'll do like 12 hits to make sure that it's right and it sounds right. Even like the first like tone that I use to open, it's got to be right. Like, I'm just a perfectionist in that regard, just because, like I said, I will never, I'll complain. Obviously everybody complains, but like, I will never be somebody that takes my job for granted, and I never want to lose my job. And like I said, the way that you never lose your job is you never give somebody a reason to replace you. And to do that, you just keep getting better. Try to keep getting better.
No doubt about it. Now, how often do you, either on Twitter, Instagram, or email, get confused because there's this first sort of similar name with you in the industry? You're Connor J. Hughes. There's also Connor J. Rogers.
Rogers? Yeah.
I used to work with and sit with. So wondering how often you maybe get people looking to tweet him, they tweet you, or email, or vice versa.
Well, Connor does a lot of like I know him well. Like, so Connor and I both wrote at JetsWire for a little bit. So I've known Connor for years. Like, that's going back probably 10 years now, maybe 8. Yeah, because it was probably 2012, 2013. So I've known Connor Rogers forever, which is kind of cool when we both do SNY stuff together, just because like it's cool that both of our careers have come full circle. I don't know if I get confused for him as much as he might get flack for me, because Connor's like real into like the film breakdowns, like more than I could ever do. Like, the way that he can analyze the game and break down players and scout is just something that I will never, ever be able to do it as good as him. So I am fine taking anybody that wants that and saying, hey, go see the other Connor, kind of a thing. I, though, am a columnist. So like, there are times when I put my opinion out there and have takes. And I think sometimes if people don't agree with those takes or don't like them, they might like confuse it and think that it is Connor Rogers and go after him a little bit more so than I get him, because I don't think he does too much of the hot takey stuff or controversial hot takey stuff that I sometimes have to do. But anyone that looks at the two of us, I don't think there is any comparing. I mean, that guy's got the best hair game of anyone I've ever seen. And we were just talking about fashion not long ago, where I have to go to my wife. I don't know if he goes to his fiance, but I can tell you that like that kid's fashion is like A plus 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 plus. Like, I want to dress like Connor Rogers when I get older. Like, that kid is just an A plus fashion. So they might confuse us a little on Twitter, but if they ever see us together, I mean, there's no comparing us, because that guy, he's got the hair game that beats me, and he's got the fashion game that beats me, and it's not even close.
Don't sell yourself short. Let's be fair.
Yeah, I'm getting better. I'll tell you, I got a text from somebody at the Jets, and they were yesterday, because I did a hit. I had like I did a hit, an IA it was just a social media hit, so it wasn't going on television. So I just had a nicer quarter zip and like my vest on. I got hit up from someone at the Jets, someone in their front office, and he goes, "Looks like SNY gave you a wardrobe allowance, huh?" So I know I'm trending in the right direction. I'm trending in the right direction of fashion, where people aren't like, "Oh my God, who dressed you?" Like, I've got my wife's okaying everything and putting things together for me, and then obviously I'm starting to wear some nicer stuff. So I'm making my friends in the Jets media room make fun of me because they say I'm going Hollywood and TV for how I dress, and I'm like, you know what, I gotta, if you wanna be the part, you gotta look the part.
So wanted to ask you, because you've been in the industry for a while now, coming out of college, most memorable events, live events that you've covered, or press conferences that you covered. Do any in particular stand out to you over the years?
Yeah, the day Gino got punched, that was a wild press conference. Like that one was freaking nuts. I remember Todd always talked after practice, and we were waiting to go out for training camp, and he just walked in the media room, and I think it was Brian Costello looked at him and goes, "Todd, did you miss us?" And he looked at us and he shook his head and he goes, "You're gonna want to record this one." And he just walked right up to the podium. We all go in there. We're like, what's going on here?" And I remember it was something like it was like there was an altercation in the locker room. Geno Smith was sucker punched in the face by IK and Impali. IK and Impali has been released. And all of us, like after he finished talking, all of us, there was like probably a 20-second pause before it might have been Dom Constantino goes, "Are you serious?" And he goes, "Yes." And then all of a sudden it was just like boom with the questions. So that was a big one. And the other one was when Sam got mono. Unfortunately, they're all negative. When Sam got mono. That was like another one where like, yeah, because if you think about it, it was Monday was or Wednesday was Sam's not at practice because he has strep throat. So it's like, okay, Sam missed practice Wednesday, but Adam Gase goes, he's like, "Oh, don't worry, he'll be fine." Thursday, he goes, I think he looked at Rich and he goes, "Rich, this one's right up your alley." And he reads off the injury report. And I think the last one he goes, 14, he's going to be out. He has mono. And just like in that exact tone of just deflation and being like, what? And I remember like, it just like, sometimes you say things that you don't necessarily mean to say, but it just kind of like comes out. And I was like, "Adam, I had mono, and I remember I couldn't do anything for like a month because I missed a roller skating party when I had mono." And I was like, "Adam, I was out like a month. That wasn't like a 1 week thing when I had mono." Is he had a long time? And he goes, "He's going to be out more than this week." And it was like just why again, like the same thing as like when Gino got punched. You're like, "Oh my God, what happened?" You just start asking like then a million questions. So those two absolutely stand out, I think, more than any other one.
Sure. Negative Jets stories always
Yeah.
stand out, right?
I mean, most that's what I've covered though. Like now we've got a winning team. It's 5-2. They got turned the corner. So hopefully now we get the positive ends of it all. But I think for at least the majority of my career, it's been bad. So I unfortunately.
What do you remember about the John Idzik era?
I was only there for the year, right? Like 2014, and I was part-time. Yes, I was part-time. So I was there for the infamous press conference. Like I was there when he had like his 11-minute, preamble or whatever the hell it was. But I was part-time at that point. Like that's when I was leaving college to literally try both years, 14 and 15. I was leaving college classes early to try to get to practices and stuff like that. Like I remember I missed a finals once. Final because of Todd Bowles and Mike McCagnon's introductory press conference. And like I had misread the syllabus where I thought like my professor had decided to flip review day. He canceled and he decided to just make the final like open book or something like that. But I didn't get that message. So I just didn't show up. And like I showed up like the next day and he goes like, "We already had the final." And I was like, I was at a press. I swear to God, I was at the. He didn't believe me. Like I had to get like my credential and get someone from the Jets media relations to be like, "Yes, Connor Hughes was here," because he didn't believe me that I was covering a press conference. Like he had no clue. I was like, "Dude, try." It was like some stupid like 101 class. I was like, "Dude," I'm pretty sure what I'm doing is like a little more important than this. Like I'm pretty sure this is a little more important. Like let's bring it in here. It's a 101 like media theory something. I was like, "Can we bring this back, man?"
Perfect segue. You couldn't stand the professor. So I wanted to ask you, players, coaches, front office people, were there people over the years who were either just unavailable to you or made themselves unavailable, who you just couldn't stand? And other side of the coin, which players, coaches, front office people, colleagues, you could add into this, were most helpful for you, available for you, and people that you enjoyed covering and speaking to?
Yeah, the bad ones were. I mean, there's not too many bad ones. Like Mo Wilkerson wasn't overly good with the media. Jamal Adams was a phony. Like that was pretty obvious. Tremaine Johnson was terrible. Like Tremaine Johnson was obviously terrible. Those guys stand out. On the good end of things, I always really enjoyed talking to Austin Seferian Jenkins. He was great. Darren Lee also was always really good to me. I like talking to him. Adam Gase, I know, got absolutely ripped by Jet fans, but I kind of wish that who wasn't in the media room when he was covering, when Adam was the head coach of the teams. I think fans would have been able to see Adam for more of who he was, because he really wasn't the person that he was portrayed as. This regime's great. Joe Douglas is a great guy. Robert Saleh is a great guy. LaFleur, great guy. Ulbrich, good guy. Like they are. There's really, really good guys running the Jets now. Professionally, like people that have helped me throughout my career. Jordan Rodon, who I've said obviously was a huge help. Art Stapleton obviously was a huge help to me. And then from professor standpoint, John Morano from Monmouth, and Steve Royak at now he's a professor at Rowan University, not RCBC, but Rowan University. Steve Royak, those guys helped me immensely, probably more than anyone else. And there's no doubt, if not for all of those guys, I am not where I am today.
Fair enough. Yeah. Nobody really gets to where they want to be in their career, I feel, without having previous generation people help them. So it's good to see that everyone helped you out there. For you, Connor, give me your game day routine when you're at the stadium. What time are you getting there? What are you doing leading up to the game, during the game, after the game? And most importantly, it's a long day for you. So I got to know, what are you eating and when are you eating it?
Yeah. I'm actually talking. Actually, Zach Rosenblatt and I were talking about this, like getting to the stadium this weekend early for like player walk-ins, like when they arrive, like player arrivals. Because I was actually talking, the Giants guys do that, and it is good. Like it's good FaceTime with the players, and it's they see you're there, you see they're there. It's like kind of a good way to develop some mutual respect. So, beginning with that, this weekend I'll probably get to the stadium at 9:00. I'll do those game introductions, probably, or the player arrivals from like 9 until 10 or so is usually when those wrap up. So I'll do those until 10:00. At that point, I'll go upstairs to the press box, because that's like down by the locker rooms. I'll go up to the press box, grab coffee. They usually have eggs and stuff at MetLife Stadium. Grab that kind of food. Then I will put my stuff down, set up my spot at where my spot is in the press box. At 11:30, I have a pregame live hit. So I have to go down to the field, meet up with our field producer, our cameraman, just kind of go over what they're going to ask me, what they want me to talk about, how much time I have. Is it a 3-minute hit? Is it a 5-minute hit? Is it a 6-minute? Do they want like 45-second answers, minute answers? Is there something they want me to expand on? They'll ask me, because usually I'll reach out to people that I know within the Jets building before the hit to be like, hey, anything happened this week? Like I got pregame, anything I can use, that kind of stuff, like just to gather some information. I'll let them know like ahead of time, like, hey, like for example, like before Jets, who they play week 3? Whoever they played week 3, the Bengals, I think.
Yes.
I think Bengals. So, and then Zach played week 4. So I talked to somebody within the Jets building that was like, hey, Zach's coming back next week. So I let SNY know, like, hey, just so you know, I'm saving this for the pregame show. I was like, I'm going to say Zach Wilson's coming back. That barring a massive setback, he's going to start for the Jets against the Steelers. Like he's going to get medical clearance on Monday. He's going to start for the Jets against the Steelers. So just so you know, that's coming. So they know to cut it for social, tweet it all out. After that, that's 11:30. Usually I'll stay down on the field. I'll walk around. I'll talk to some coaches that I see, some players that I see. I'll just kind of, BS and socialize down there, source a little bit. Go back upstairs, grab coffee, socialize with other reporters, then wait for the game to start. Game goes till whenever the game ends. After the game ends, we go right down to the bottom of the stadium, go into the press conference room with the coach, talk to Saleh. Then we'll go into the locker room to talk to the players. Once that's done, I go right onto the field, because I have to do a video either by myself or with Janae, just recapping the game. Usually it's like a video column, so it's like a take or an opinion or a big picture analysis of what just happened. Do that on the field, then I go upstairs, I write my column, and then after I do my column, I file it. And then I go home, and it's a late night. Like usually if it's a 1:00 game, I will get home around time for the second half of the Sunday night football game. If it's a 4:00 or a night game, obviously I am home much later, which kind of stinks. So that's the one benefit of the Jets being kind of bad of the last few years, is a lot of 1:00 games. So I'm able to at least get home at a decent enough time.
Certainly. But yeah, long days. So interesting to hear that schedule. I appreciate that. The other question I usually ask people who are covering the games, and it's more challenging for play-by-play guys and whatnot, but for you, and sometimes it's tight up there in the press box. if you have to go to the bathroom, what do you do? Are you holding it in till halftime, or are you doing stuff at halftime? Is there big lines? How do you sort that out? Are you making sure before you go down the field pregame you go to the bathroom, especially when it's cold? How's that?
Yeah.
How's the bladder breakdown work?
Yes. So that is, I always make sure I go to the bathroom before I go down to the field, just because I don't want to, like, for that reason, like, be down there all of a sudden doing the happy dance, or like see someone I want to talk to and be like, oh no, I have to run and go to the bathroom. But what's actually cool is in the press box, they have the PA announcer who announces every single play. So, like, Michael Carter rushes for 3 yards, bringing up a 2nd and 7, like that kind of a thing. They have that playing in the press box all the time. So if, like, I have to go to the bathroom during the game, I literally just walk into the bathroom, you hear what's going on above your head, and then you can go back to your seat. So there's usually no lines. Like, there's 2 huge bathrooms, men and women, ton of urinals and stuff like that in there to take care of the business. So there's no worry with going to the bathroom at the press box. You just kind of get up and go.
Getting some real insider information with Insider Joe. I know the fans are definitely gonna love this.
Yeah.
So, Connor, for you in your either in your life or your career, what would you say is your I'm right moment? So, mean by that is a time or place where you wanted to do something, you asked somebody for advice, they said, "Nah, I don't think you should do that," and ultimately you were like, "You know what? I'm gonna do anyway," and you'll see why it is that I'm right.
That's a good one.
I think we finally stumped them.
For you, it seems like it was a reverse with you and your professor when you were like, "I'm going to go ahead and do broadcasting." He's like, "You got it right."
Yeah, and that's when he, like, I was like, you know what, shit, you're right, let's do it. I would honestly think, like, there were people that I talked to when I was making the jump to the athletic that advised me not to do it. And I think that there was just something about Paul when I was talking to him that made me think, like, this is right. And I would say even with that, then when I made the jump to SNY and I went from the athletic to SNY, I remember, like, talking, and it's like always, it's like my wife's obviously my biggest sounding board, and, like, she's the one that I go to with everything, and the one I talk to through everything. She's been with me literally every single step of my career, from when I was covering Little League baseball games for the Burlington County Times to now when I'm on TV in the biggest media market in the world. Like, she has been with me every step of the way. And I remember, like, making the jump from the Ledger to the athletic was one where some people said no, and there was just something about it where I was like, this is right. And I know when things were starting to progress with SNY, and I was like, you know what, like, because it was like a timing thing where, like, SNY had offered me, but it was a weird thing. I remember being like, you know what, I was wondering if now was the time for me to make the jump to TV. Like, was it too early? You know what I mean? Like, should I cut my teeth a little bit more, cut my teeth in another 2 years, then try to make the jump, or am I ready now at 30? And I remember, like, my big thing was always, like, I said this when I was 23 and 24, and I would speak to, like, college classes, right? And professors and students would always be like, well, what's next? What's next? What's next? And I always just say, I just want to be a beat writer at a major publication until I'm 30. And then when I turn 30, I want to reassess. Like, that's when I want to reassess, is like once I turn 30. And I turned 30 in February, and literally in May or June is when, like, things really progressed with SNY. And I remember, like, sitting back and having some, like, moments of hesitation and being like, am I ready for full-time TV? Am I ready to do Jets and Giants? Am I ready to, like, expand, or should I just stay writing? And I remember sitting there with Bree, and, like, the two of us looking at each other and being like, you've always said just wait until you're 30. Like, you just want to get to 30. And she's like, you're 30, not even 6 months. And this is now here. Like, it just played out so perfectly. And every step of the way has always played out so perfectly that that's probably my answer for that, was going to the athletic when some people said no, but then also just, like, telling myself, like, get to 30 and then reassess what you want to do. Do you want to stay beat? Do you want to go TV? Do you want to go columnist? What do you want to do? And just the fact that literally, I mean, I've said that since I was 22, 23 years old when I got my first job, full-time job in this field. And then, like, to be 30 and just have the opportunity there and the opportunity presented to me, it was like surreal. You know what I mean? Like, where I was like, wow, it all really came together. Like, it all played out just kind of how you wanted to. I've been very fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, it's a much more neater trajectory than you think it is. So, job well done.
Thank you.
One last question from me. Nick loves when I ask this. He puts it on the sheet every time now. So I'm an astrology buff, right? Very uncommon for a dude to be an astrology buff. So I got to ask your zodiac sign. Your February birthday. So are you an Aquarius or you're Pisces?
I'm an Aquarius. I believe I'm an Aquarius. So I've been asked this before. My wife just started getting into it and stuff like that. I'm fascinated by that stuff without knowing anything about that. Like, so I'm like, every time I hear about it, I'm like, and I'll read it and I'll be like, shit, that actually kind of describes me. Or like, they're like, that kind of makes a lot of sense. I'm like, I just need to commit to it, like learn more about it. Cause I've heard a lot of people that are like that and it's fascinating to me, but unfortunately I don't know anything. But yeah, it's Aquarius.
So when's your birthday?
February 9th, unless am I wrong? I'm pretty sure I'm Aquarius.
No, you're an Aquarius. You're an Aquarius.
Okay,
no, the
cool.
reason because I asked because my grandma's February 11th, right? So only 2 days
gotcha.
after.
Okay.
Yeah. So Aquarius people, for the most part, you are an air sign, right? So air signs are the more gifted natural communicators.
Yeah.
You're a fixed sign, right? So your opinions, your belief systems, right? I say stubborn, but I don't mean stubborn in necessarily a bad way.
No, you can definitely say that in a bad way too. Like I am very stubborn.
There you go.
That's definitely probably accurate.
Absolutely love it. And I would say if there's sort of again, there's a positive, negative to everything, but from my perspective, Aquarius signs are, of all the zodiac signs, are a little more detached, right, than other signs, right? So do you find yourself in situations, maybe with family or friends, where it's like you kind of just want to be left alone a little more, or like you kind of love doing your own thing, have like those little quirky ways about you that people just don't understand?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. I think anyone in my field, or maybe not, maybe it's just me because of this, but no, absolutely.
And Aquarius people, from my perspective, are also very worldly too, right? So it's like,
oh yeah,
they love like internally, like taking care of the poor and the downtrodden and all that stuff. So
oh yeah,
but yeah. So
I think Connor's worldly. Connor,
I think
where was the honeymoon?
Aruba, but it was like actually our real honeymoon was Italy the next year. So we were like, Italy was what we wanted to do, but when we got married was right after we got married is when like the Delta variant kind of kicked in.
Yeah.
So Italy was like open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close. And we were like, we're going to pay all this money to go over there and we're going to be stuck in a hotel and it's going to be terrible and nothing's going to be open. So we did Aruba because it was fully open for our honeymoon. And then the 1 year, like we celebrated our 1 year in Italy. That was our dream trip to go to. And we've been fortunate. Like, we've been to Italy, Hawaii, obviously is the United States, but my wife and I take a bunch of trips. And the cool thing about this job too is I travel. Yeah, I travel a lot for work. And my wife every year picks a road trip to come with me on. So she gets to experience wherever we go. So Nashville or wherever I end up. She's been to Miami, she's been to New Orleans. Like, she's been in so many different places with me, being able to come down because, obviously my airfare is covered, hotel, my food's covered, that kind of a thing. So it's a cool way to like get her out and travel.
Joe's been saying
she's with me in London
now.
I knew you were going to do this.
I think Joe's been saying this for a while, Connor, but you might be taking your wife to Arizona in February for
the
Super Bowl.
Yeah. Giants, yeah, I know. That's another place. We actually went there. Arizona is probably one of my favorite places in the world.
Oh, Joe loves Arizona. It too.
Yeah, I love Arizona. There was 1 year where the Jets played there, the owners' meetings were there, and then I took my wife for like a long weekend to Arizona. It's freaking awesome. I love it.
I've had a busy travel year. So bachelor party weekend, the weekend of the Super Bowl in February. My friends and I went to Scottsdale. There was a group of almost 20 of us. So that was unbelievable. A couple months later, summer rolls around, went to Nashville, gifted wrestling tickets by a friend of Nick and I who was on the podcast. And then a couple of weeks ago, Nick and I, we were in Vegas, right?
Business trip.
I went back business. It was a business trip, but been to the desert twice this year. So I love that desert dry heat, but I mean, like, I've been getting around too, as well. And I didn't think it was
there you go, man.
This year. But Connor,
there you go.
Your wife's going to love the end of this podcast. Hopefully you'll show her. But we thank you for your time. We really
thank you, man.
It. Love watching you on SNY. And what we do here is we always give our guests the last word. So if there's anything else you would like to share or promote for yourself, we wish you the best of luck moving forward. You get the best of both worlds now. You get to be on TV and cover both teams. And the first big year you're doing this, both the Giants and the Jets have resuscitated a little bit. They're back. They both have good records. Who knows how long that's going to last? But it's nice to have quality football actually into the fall here. We only get 3 weeks of fall here, so it's nice to have the Giants and Jets back. But if there's anything else you would like to share, promote, go right ahead. Appreciate you doing this with us.
I'm good, man. I think SNY wants me to hit to watch the Jets pre and post game, so I know that they like plugging that. But I'm good, man. Like, you guys are great. Thank you so much for having me on. This was a lot of fun. I usually talk about it's been a while since I talked about going back to how I started and where I was, and it's cool too to obviously name drop some of the people that have helped me along the way, which is pretty cool.
Well, that's what You Know I'm Right's all about, uncovering the origin story. So, Connor, we thank you so much for your time. So that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right for our very special guest, Connor Hughes, for my coach, Joe Calabrese. I'm Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.